So you just had a relapse. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to feel. You feel like a failure. You feel like nothing's really working for you. I'm going to get into all that stuff in this video. But before we start, please, if you guys are liking the videos, please like, please comment, please subscribe. I love all you guys. Now, through my time doing drugs, I mean, I must have got clean. I always say like 100 times, but it probably wasn't 100 times. But we're talking like 50 times, 50 times throughout like an 8 year span. Where like I tried to get clean. I tried putting forth like my best effort, or so I thought, and I would end up relapsing. And every single time, I just felt like hopeless, and I felt like I was a failure, and I felt like I let everybody down around me. Not only like letting people down around you, but like the financial burden that it takes to get clean sometimes, depending upon what route you're going, whether you're going like, inpatients, outpatients, therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, like that shit costs like a lot of money. And there's a lot of pressure on you to get clean. First things first, like off the bat, like do not feel like a failure. Relapsing is not meant to make us feel like failures. It's not meant to like bring us down. It's supposed to show us something. And in my experience, what it's showing me is that the plan that I had put in place for my aftercare phase, there was a hole in it somewhere. One size does not fit all for getting sober. If there's one thing that I've learned over the last 11 years of getting sober, helping other people get sober, seeing friends get sober, is that none of us really got sober in the exact same way. There's always something different. You can take like advice from other people, see what other people are doing and take their guidelines. But in reality, you have to find your own way, and a lot of that will start to come to you, as you get some time under your belt. But the most common thing that I see when people are getting clean is they're planning out like the first 2 weeks, the first 3 weeks, the first 4 weeks of getting sober, which is usually like, like a withdrawal phase. It's going to be like the worst part of your sobriety. It's going to be that like first 30 days. And people are worried about that, and you should be, and that part sucks. But a lot of people aren't looking past that. Once you get through that like 30 days, that first 2 to 4 weeks, the hard work actually starts then. And that's where you need like really good planning. And the thing that I really want to talk about in this video is I want to talk about your aftercare phase. For me, my aftercare phase was weightlifting. I found weightlifting something to replace, drug use with me. The most common thing that people have a problem with when doing drugs is that, you're in a schedule of it. You're used to it. You're used to starting your day with drugs. You're used to waking up and having that drink, or you're used to waking up and popping that pill or doing that shot. To try to get away from that, you have to replace it with something. And that's unlimited across the map. A lot of like the institutions and a lot of the most popular ones that people push are like, the AA groups, the NA groups. Some people find religion, some people do like the therapy, the psychiatry, and you don't have to pick one. You can do, mix, you can mix those across the board, and I urge you to start trying a lot of them, but it's not limited to just those three things. Whether you go see a doctor, you go to AA, or you go to religion. I got stuck in those three things. When I was getting sober, those big three was what was pushed, and I tried all of them, and none of them really worked for me. None of them really triggered for me. And getting sober now and being sober for 11 years, the things that I've seen people get sober on, whether it be, some people became artists, some people started coloring, some people started working out, some people started, sewing, or, doing interior design, like just whatever, like really excited them inside them and made them feel good is what they chased after. Because really we're trying to replace like the rush of that drug, the rush of the alcohol. You have to find something on a daily basis that you're going to do that's going to make yourself happy and make you feel fulfilled inside. The easiest one for me was working out. That's what I push. I think exercise is one of the easiest things to do that can, help boost your self confidence and help make you happy, and it's pretty immediate the way that it does it, but be open to trying things. What do you like? Like if one thing's not working for you and you just keep relapsing, then we go back to the whole thing of like, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same things over and over, hoping for a different result. If AA is not working for you, you feel like you've given it your best shot, try something else. Try going to, try psychiatry, try a psychologist or therapist, like I've been to countless ones across the board. Some were good, some were bad. Some actually really helped me. I had a combination of both. When I was working out and getting sober, a few years under my belt, I went and saw therapists. There was a few things that I needed to work through that, I couldn't figure out myself, and it was very helpful. But I've also been to a lot of therapists that aren't working. If they're not working for you, try something different. You know, the biggest thing that I'm trying to push is that, when you relapse, don't feel like a failure. Don't give up. Maybe your plan that you put in place, wasn't the right plan for you. Maybe it worked for somebody else, but it's not going to work for you. That's fine. What excites you inside? What ignites you? Whatever it may be. Maybe you like to work on cars. Maybe you like to volunteer your time. Whatever it may be, go try to find it. Try it. This doesn't have to be like you have to do A, B, or C. It's an open book. Once you guys find that thing that excites you, that thing that you can replace your drug or your alcohol with, you need to make a plan. And I'm talking like long-term plans and short-term plans. I'm going to use me for an example with like working out. I wanted to transform my body. I was overweight. I wanted to lose fat. I wanted to put muscle on my body. I wanted to become faster at running. I wanted to do all this stuff. And obviously this is not something that you can do, immediately. It's going to take time. It's something to work on, which is like a good thing and it's a bad thing. Because if it takes a long time, you're not going to get that gratification from it. But I set my long-term goals of what I needed, what I wanted to get out of it. A year from now, 2 years from now, this is what I wanted to do. This is the amount of weight that I wanted to lift. This is the way I wanted to look, the body fat that I wanted, the weight that I wanted. And then I tried to figure out what I had to do every single day to work towards that goal. And as long as I was doing everything that I needed to do during the day that aligned with that goal to try to get me there, I got my satisfaction from that. I found my happiness in that because I knew that I was taking the steps that I needed to try to reach the long-term goals. And because long-term goals are awesome, they're great to work towards. But once you hit them, it's almost like a small time reward, like I ended up hitting some benches that I wanted to hit, or like, weightlifts that I wanted to lift, squats or deadlifts. I hit a body fat that I wanted to get to. I hit a weight that I wanted to get to. And it was cool for about 5 seconds until I set the next goal, so don't wait around for your long-term goal. Focus on the daily things that you're doing to work towards those long-term goals. And that could be for anything. Maybe you want to become an artist. Maybe you just want to paint. Maybe like your goal is to sell one of your paintings. Maybe your goal is to like inspire other people with your art. What do you have to do on a daily basis to try to get to that point? Or maybe you want to start a sewing business, or you want to start working on cars, or whatever the hobby may be that you want to get into. Set long-term goals. And then you have to figure out what you need to do on a daily basis to work towards that long-term goal. And if your actions throughout the day are aligned with going towards that long-term goal, that's where you're going to find your happiness. That's where you're going to find your self-confidence, the satisfaction in the things that you're doing. And you become so entranced with it and so involved with it that, for me, drugs never entered, they never entered my head again. You know, I was so hyper focused on what I wanted to do, and it was making me happy on a daily basis. I was working towards it, that I never thought about it again. I hope this gives you guys some insight. I hope you guys, if you guys are struggling with relapsing, you guys are struggling with getting clean, you know, outline your plan. You know, figure out a plan that works for you. Like I said, this is not one size fits all. You know, maybe just working out for me got me clean, but maybe like working out in a therapist for you might work. Maybe you like to go to AA meetings, but you also like to work out on the side too. You know, don't get sucked into people's, you know, narrow visions of like getting sober. You know, if you've gone through the court systems, or if you've gone through like psychiatrists or psychologists, they pretty much all push the exact same thing, and they make it very narrow for what you can get sober with. The door's open for you guys. I love all you guys. I hope you guys are doing good. If you guys like the videos, please like, please comment, please subscribe. I love all you. I'm out.